Ram Kaluahine enjoyed feeling the wind rush through his thick black hair as he drove his small American convertible on the two-lane highway that would take him and his wife to the southernmost part of his home island, Ka'atani. Located in the South Pacific Ocean, Ka'atani actually consisted of several islands, the largest of which was about 65 miles from tip to tip and home to about 1.5 million natives and another 100,000 foreigners, mostly Americans. Ka'atani was an independent nation, with its own government, police, and defense force. Historically, the nation had been ruled by a monarch, but had adopted a democratic system similar to that used in the United States. It had a president, who was elected to serve one 5-year term, and a House of Representatives, with members elected every 2 years by the citizenry. The nation had begun an aggressive campaign of modernization over 70 years ago under a previous monarch who felt it was time to bring the population into the 20th century. As a result, Ka'atani today had all the conveniences of modern life, including the internet, along with all the trappings of a modern civilization. Fortunately, the people had managed to remain true to most of their ancient values, and as a result, the nation still had the lowest divorce rate in the world, even surpassing India, which by some reports only has a 1% divorce rate. Except for the strange rocks scattered on the sides of Mount Satani that glowed at night, the sandy beaches, and the hospitality of the population, Ka'atani had nearly nothing to offer potential conquerors, and had so far escaped the stigma of foreign rule. Not even the Japanese considered Ka'atani during World War II, thinking it too far south to be of much use in its conquest of the Pacific. This was where Ram was born and raised, the place he called home, and he loved it. It was a good day for a drive, he thought. Not too hot, not too cold, and the humidity was bearable at this altitude. The reason for the drive, however, made him both angry and sad. He looked at the woman sitting in the passenger seat. Marion was her name. She was a California beauty, he thought. Blonde hair, soft, supple skin, and tanned, toned legs made for intimacy. She wasn't just his wife. She was every man's wet dream. He had just over an hour before they reached their destination, so he thought back over their lives together. He met her 6 years ago when he first accepted a teaching position at the local campus of an American university headquartered in Washington, D.C. At the time, he had just completed his doctorate and decided to return home. The local university board welcomed him with open arms and offered him the position. He took to it like a fish to water. He loved teaching, and he enjoyed teaching the local youth. She worked in the admissions office as a counselor, and the two of them met at a social function held by the president of the university. They took to each other, dated for about a year, and eventually married. She was an only child who had lost her parents in an auto accident just a couple years before. As far as he knew, she had no other relatives. Strangely enough, she wanted a traditional Ka'atani marriage. He thought that odd, since most local girls wanted anything but a traditional marriage these days. At first, he thought that maybe she was either patronizing him or was a bit delusional, and questioned her about it. Perhaps she didn't fully understand the true meaning of what she claimed to want, he thought. But she was adamant that was what she wanted. So he gave her a text file of the chant she would have to repeat at the ceremony and taught her the proper way to pronounce the words. She already knew some of the local language, enough to communicate in the local markets, but not enough to fully understand the real meaning of what she would commit herself to. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Toward the end, Marion knelt in her short white robe and picked up the pillow next to her. She held it up to him and chanted the traditional phrase perfectly. A rough English translation of the phrase was, "I submit myself to you, my husband, in body, mind, and spirit." Of course, there was a much fuller meaning of the phrase, but it had long since been largely forgotten by all but the oldest and most traditional of the population. He grasped the sivage sitting on the pillow, a short curved dagger carried by husbands in the old days, a sign that they were off limits and prepared to defend to the death that which was theirs and theirs alone. He admired Marion's handiwork, the richly adorned handle with the seal of his family. She had even anointed it with her own blood, as was done in the old days. After he repeated the chant, he held the knife and cut the ties holding her robe, letting it fall to the ground. She remained still, her naked body now in full view of those in attendance. He opened his own robe and presented his manhood to her. As tradition demanded, she took his manhood into her mouth until he was fully erect. Then he picked her up and placed her, naked, on the wedding altar. He moved close and, in front of all those present, consummated the marriage on the altar until they both reached orgasm. In times long past, this was where the bride would prove to her family and to the community as a whole that she was a virgin, worthy of her new husband. He helped her off the altar, and the two walked back down the aisle to his car, his running down her leg, a sign that she now belonged to him and him alone. After their first night on the island, they flew back to the States, where they enjoyed a week-long honeymoon in Las Vegas. The next 3 years were great. Ram and Marion continued their work at the university and spent their free time making sweet love to each other. He couldn't imagine life getting any better than this. Then Marion got transferred to the main campus in Washington, D.C., so he put in for a transfer as well, hoping the school would give him a chance to teach in the American capital city. The board agreed to transfer him, and so the two set off to live and work in Washington. Marion had lived there prior to coming to Cayetani and promised to show him all the sights, not knowing that he had spent several weekends in the city while attending college. The next year and a half saw a number of changes in their lives. Marion's new position required her to work later than normal sometimes, travel, and attend social functions where she hobnobbed with the rich and famous. Sometimes she took him with her to these functions. Even though she introduced him as her husband and a professor, he got the feeling that he was a token, or worse, an exhibition, a zoo creature to be stared at by the locals. More than once he felt uneasy and irritated at the patronizing manner in which the others spoke to him. Some even raised their voice and spoke slowly, as though he was some kind of invalid who didn't understand English. More than once, he had to refrain from putting his fist through someone's face. He remembered one conversation he had with Marion after a recent event. "Are you okay, honey?" she asked, as he stripped off his expensive suit. "No, I'm not," he growled in his deep baritone voice. "What's wrong? Did someone say something bad to you?" "It's the way it was said. Do you remember that scene in Outlaw Josie Wales where the character played by Chief Dan George talked about meeting Abraham Lincoln at the White House?" She nodded her head. "Yes, I do," she said. They had just watched the movie on DVD a couple nights previous. "I can relate to what he said. It's almost as if these people think because I'm a Pacific Islander I should have a bone in my nose and wear a loincloth." "Well, you would need a pretty long one," she told him, patting his crotch. He chuckled at that. "Do they not realize I graduated at the top of my class at Harvard? Do they not know how I worked to put myself through college so I wouldn't be a burden or have to carry a heavy load of debt?" "I don't think so," she said quietly. "Well, I don't like these people you have to kowtow to, and I sure as hell don't like being displayed like some kind of zoo specimen. It's all part of the game, but I understand how you feel. You don't have to attend these things if you feel uncomfortable, you know." He shook his head. "No, you're my wife, and I should be there to support you. Besides, I don't like the thought of someone else escorting you. By the way, what's with this new boss of yours, Jake Hamilton?" he asked. He met Jake that evening for the first time and took an instant dislike to him. His face had "Hound" written all over it. "They just recently brought him in. He's from New York. He's really a very sweet guy once you get to know him." "He seems to have taken a liking to you. Ram said. He couldn't help but notice that Jake had spent most of the night close to Marion. Sometimes, he thought, maybe just a bit too close. "You're not jealous, are you?" she asked. He smiled and took her in his big arms. "Of course I am. But he does know that you're married, right?" "Yes, he knows," she said, putting her arms around his neck. "Good. I hope he remembers." They finished the night making love, but he had a bad feeling in his gut. Something told him he needed to keep an eye on Jake Hamilton. Things went straight downhill over the next 6 months. Marion ended up getting sent out of town with Jake a number of times, and she started working much later in the evenings, far more than before. As a result, their intimate life all but disappeared, as she always seemed to be too tired to do anything. It all crumbled one day when Ram was in his office, going over student papers. He was interrupted by a knock at the door. "Come in," he said. The door opened, and a petite brunette poked her head inside. She pushed her glasses up her nose before speaking. "Dr. Kaluahine, do you have a couple minutes?" she asked. He looked at her and instantly recognized her as one of the girls who worked in Marion's office, but he couldn't remember her name. He motioned for her to come inside. "Please, come in, and feel free to call me Ram. My students call me Dr. Kaluahine, but you're obviously not one of my students." She walked into his office and stood before his desk. "What can I do for you, Ms. Harper?" she said quietly. "April Harper. I work in your wife's office." "Yes, of course. What can I do for you, Ms. Harper?" "Well," she began nervously, "I don't quite know how to say this." "I find it's best to simply say what's on your mind," he told her. She nodded her head. "Well, it's about your wife and Mr. Hamilton," she said, getting his full attention. "I'm kinda embarrassed to say since it's quite personal, but I think what they're doing is just wrong, and I thought you have a right to know. That is, unless you already know and approve of it. I know some guys like that sort of thing." "What sort of thing is that, Ms. Harper? What are they doing that upsets you so much?" "They're, well, having an affair," she said. He felt his face turn red. "Are you absolutely certain of that, Ms. Harper? That's quite an accusation. They're gone most every day for lunch, and their lunches often last longer than normal. They take trips together all the time. He buys her flowers, and it's pretty obvious from the way they interact that it's more than just a professional relationship. Plus, the girls are all talking. Mr. Hamilton has quite a reputation, even though he tries to keep it all hush-hush." "I see," Ram said. "Have you personally witnessed anything to suggest they're having an affair? Have you seen them kiss each other or do anything inappropriate? PDAs, anything?" "I did see them kiss one day when they came out of his office," she said nervously. He nodded his head when she finished. "Tell me, Ms. Harper, how often does Mr. Hamilton have you girls work after hours?" he asked. She shook her head. "We generally don't work after hours. The college is very strict about that. Marion and Jake sometimes stay late, but the rest of us normally don't. The only time we might work after hours is when we're getting ready for graduation or student enrollment, but even then, we get comp time to make up for it. They hate paying overtime." "I see. Have you said anything to anyone else?" he asked. "I haven't said anything to anyone. I wanted to bring it to you first. We all like Marion and we don't want to see her get in trouble. Still, it's unsettling. If the dean or the president ever saw it, there'd be hell to pay." "Yes, they would. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, Ms. Harper. I'll take care of it from here." "Thank you, Dr. Ram," she said. After she left the office, he pulled up a Word document that he had saved on his computer. It was a list of private investigators and divorce attorneys. He had been collating for a while. He had hoped he wouldn't need to use any of the information, but he felt as though he now had no choice. If she was cheating as April said, he would have no choice but to divorce her. He picked up his phone and made a call. He wasn't surprised when Marion texted him later that day to say she would be working late. He sat at the dining room table and picked at his food, wondering what his wife and Jake were doing at that moment. Eventually, he tossed the leftover lasagna into the garbage disposal and went upstairs to the master bedroom. He put on a pair of pajamas and lay in bed with the television on. He woke up when he heard Marion in the room. She came over to him and gave him a kiss on the forehead. Her hair smelled like it had been freshly shampooed, and he thought he detected an odor of aftershave. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know he would keep me so long. I grabbed a bite to eat on the way home." She went into the bathroom and came out a short time later wearing a pair of flannel pajamas. That was her signal that there would be no intimacy tonight. He really didn't want to have intimacy with her anyway, not if she had just been with Jake. "He's been working you late a lot lately," Rayan said. "How much longer is this going to go on?" "Hard to say. He's kept the whole department working late." He felt rage hearing her lie to him, but kept himself under control. "The whole department, huh? I thought the college frowned on overtime." "Normally, yes. But he's got a big meeting coming up with some major donors soon, and we have to be ready for it. Oh, that reminds me. We're going to New York on Friday. We'll be leaving before lunch and we'll be gone for the weekend." "That's rather short notice," he said. Today was Wednesday, or rather, early Thursday morning. "That's why we're working so much now. I'm sorry, I'll make it up to you." "Okay," he said, rolling onto his side. He knew this was bullshit, but wanted to give her enough rope to hang herself. Later that day, Jake came to visit Ram at his office. He knocked on the door and entered before Ram could respond. Ram looked up to see Jake's perpetual smirk. "What can I do for you, Mr. Hamilton?" he asked. "I just wanted to drop by and apologize for monopolizing your wife's time. I'm sure you may have heard the rumors, and I just wanted to reassure you nothing inappropriate is going on." "I don't put much stock in rumors, Mr. Hamilton. I deal with facts and evidence, and I certainly hope for your sake there is nothing inappropriate happening." Jake's smirk wavered for a moment. This wasn't the response he expected. In his experience, academic types tended to be wimps. But there was something about this man that unnerved Jake. Maybe it was his voice, or the inscrutable manner in which Ram regarded him. Nothing about Ram said wimp, and for a moment Jake considered abandoning his plans for Marion. "Of course not, Dr. Kaluahin. By the way, did Marion tell you that we'll be in New York this weekend?" "She did," Ram said. He purposefully did not give Jake permission to refer to him by name, as he really didn't like the man. "Rather short notice, I must say. I had planned on taking her out Friday night. She's been spending more time with you than with me lately." "Again, I apologize for that. It's our work. It never ends, you know." "When do you think I might be able to spend some time with my wife?" Raymond asked somewhat sarcastically. "Very soon. We just have some things that need to be taken care of. Look, I have to go now. It's been nice speaking with you." Ram said nothing as he watched Jake slither out of the office. After Jake left, he picked up his phone and made another call. He got a text from his wife that afternoon that she had to work late again to prepare for the weekend meeting. He wasn't surprised, and the email he received on his personal account didn't surprise him either. He went home, stopping for dinner on the way. He had had enough of lies and leftovers. At about 8 p.m., he called Marion on her office number, but the call went to voicemail. He left a message and called Jake's office number. He got the same response, but he didn't leave a message. He read and reread the message he had gotten earlier that day and looked at the photos that were attached. He was still at his computer when Marion came back late that night. "Are you still up?" she asked, a concerned look on her face. "Did you eat anything?" "I stopped for dinner on the way home. I'm tired of leftovers." "I'm sorry. We were going over everything one last time for the meeting." "So you were at your office?" he asked. "Well, yes. Where else would I be?" "You tell me. I called your office at 8 but got no answer. I also called Jake's office." "We were in the conference room and didn't hear the phone ring," she said. He knew the layout of her office and knew that was bullshit. Even if that were the case, she should have seen the message light indicating that someone had called. "Did you not see that I had left a message?" he asked. "I didn't even look, Ram. I'm sorry. By the way, Jake said you were a bit rude to him earlier today. And what's this about a Friday night date? You never mentioned anything about that to me." "It was supposed to be a surprise. I guess it doesn't matter now." "Of course it matters, Ram," she said. "No, it doesn't. I have to go to bed now, Marion. Good night." He trudged up the stairs to the master bedroom, wondering how much longer the deception would last before he ended it. He said nothing as she slid under the covers and tried to cuddle up to him. "I love you, Ram," she whispered into his ear. He grunted in response. "I love you too, Marion," he said quietly, a hint of sadness in his voice. She took the hint and rolled away from him. He could hear quiet sobs from her side of the bed, but shut them out of his mind. The next morning, he cornered her before he left. "Can you at least let me know where you're staying and keep in touch with me over the weekend?" he asked. "Of course," she said. She wrote down the name of her hotel and the room number, then handed it to him. "Thank you," he said, folding the paper and placing it in his pocket. "Have a safe trip." He turned to walk out the door, but Marion intercepted him. "Ram, what's the matter?" she asked. "You've not been yourself lately. Have I done something to make you angry with me?" He almost laughed out loud. "I think you know the answer to that," he told her. Her face paled as he continued out the door, not giving her a kiss goodbye. "I love you, Ram," she said as he got in his car. "So you've said," he replied before he started his car and drove to work. Even though the damage had been done, he hoped she would realize the error of her ways and change her mind about going to New York. He already knew from the investigator's report the meeting was a farce cooked up by Jake to get the two of them alone for a weekend. Unfortunately, however, she and Jake left for the airport at lunch, and he didn't hear from her until later when she arrived at the hotel. He didn't hear from her for the rest of the weekend, but he did hear from the investigator, who kept him updated on what the two lovers were doing. From the reports he read, they had a lot of fun visiting the local nightclubs, dancing and drinking, then having intimacy for most of the weekend. He nearly put his fist through a wall when he saw a video of the two of them in bed. He couldn't help but notice that Jake used no protection whatsoever. He didn't know if Marion was still taking her birth control. He considered his options. In his mind, divorce was a no-brainer. But he also knew from speaking with colleagues that divorce in the States almost always went bad for the husbands. Then he had a brainstorm, and that Sunday, he made a couple of overseas calls. He was already in bed when Marion got home late Sunday night. Normally, he would welcome her home from these trips with a hug and a kiss, then a romp in the sack, but not this time. He didn't even offer to help carry her bags in. She put her bags in the closet, changed in the bathroom, and got in bed. She tried to give him a kiss, but he rolled over to avoid touching her. The next morning, he got up before she did and left the house without saying a word to her. During his break period, he contacted his investigator and got the full report of Marion's activities over the weekend, then made another call. Marion tried contacting him throughout the day, but he ignored her calls and texts. He saw her at home that night but said very little to her. She finally cornered him in the front room after dinner. "Ran, what's going on?" she asked. "You haven't said 2 words to me since I got home. Don't you want to know if we were successful?" He looked at her hard before speaking. "I'm sure you got what you wanted," he said. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked. He reached for his laptop and brought up a video of her in bed with Jake. Her eyes widened as he played the video. "Oh God, Jake, you feel so good!" Marion moaned in the video. "Better than that savage you married?" Jake asked. "Please, you know I don't like it when you talk like that about him. He may be a savage, but he's a good man." "Well, why are you here with me instead of with him?" he asked her. "You know why, Jake?" she said. "Yeah, I do," he said, wrapping his arms around her. "Come on, let's go for it again." Disgusted, Ram turned off the video and glared at Marion. "How did you get that?" she asked Ram when he stopped the video. "What difference does it make? What I'd like to know is why." "Ram, it was only intimacy, that's all. It had nothing to do with you. You know I would never hurt you." "Well, you did. So tell me, dear wife. I noticed he didn't bother to use protection. Were you planning to get pregnant with his child and try to pass it off as mine?" "I never thought of that," she said. "Were you not concerned about what diseases you might get from him? According to my report, Jake has at least 2 other women he sees on a regular basis. And those don't include his frequent one-night stands." "He assured me that he's clean," Marion said. "And of course you foolishly believed him. After the way you disrespected me, I can no longer work here. I've requested a transfer home. I've already spoken to the chancellor and he agrees it's best. He also agreed to fire both you and Jake for blatant violations of the university's rules." "When are you planning to leave?" she asked. "At the end of the term, which finishes up this week. We leave Friday." "What about us?" she asked. "There is no us anymore. You killed that. The divorce will be finalized when we get back. Both you and Jake will need to be there for that. What you do afterward, I don't care." "Why does Jake need to be there?" she asked. "Why do you think?" he asked in response. "He's the one you were cheating on me with. The order has already been given. He can either go peacefully on his own, or he can be extradited." "Extradited? Isn't that a bit extreme?" she asked. "You forget that the Ka'atani nation has an extradition treaty with the United States. When you married me, you earned dual citizenship. As for Jake, he has no choice. He will be there, one way or another." Ram stood, indicating that he was finished and would say no more. Marion sat, stunned at what just happened. Jake had assured her that Ram would never find out, but he had. "Please, Ram, I don't want a divorce," she said, tears in her eyes. He glared at her for a few seconds before walking out of the room. "Why did you do it? Was I not good enough for you?" "You're the best," she said. "Then explain to me why," he demanded. "Well, Jake and I knew each other in college. He was my first, and I guess I just fell for him again." "I guess the old saying is right," he told her. "What saying is that?" she asked, confused. "A time to cheat and a time to die." "What do you mean? Are you saying there's no hope for us?" "When you cheated on me, you killed our marriage. You killed us. I hope it was worth it to you." The rest of the week was difficult. The chancellor called Jake and Marion into his office and fired both of them for violating university rules regarding fraternization. Then he handed Jake a sheet of paper that had been emailed to him the previous day. "What the hell is this?" Jake demanded angrily. "A summons from the kingdom of Kayatani," the chancellor said. "You are party to Dr. Kaluaheen's divorce. I'm told that if you refuse to go, you will face extradition. A plane ticket is being sent by express mail. Security will meet you there." "This is bullshit," Jake exclaimed. "Perhaps, but I've been told by the State Department that it's all legit. They're staying out of it. Now pack your trash and get out of my school. Both of you." Dejected and ashamed, Marion went to her desk and packed her things. Jake, however, had another idea and headed to Ram's office. Ram was grading papers when Jake barged into his office angry. Ram put his grading pen down before looking at Jake. "You worthless coward!" Jake yelled as he charged across the office, determined to take the bigger man down. Ram calmly extended a hand and caught Jake in the throat, abruptly ending his reckless charge. He stood over Jake, who was on the floor gasping for air, and shook his head. "Get out of my office, and I don't want to see you until the hearing." The rest of the week went fairly quickly. Ram avoided Marion as much as he could and said practically nothing to her. Marion tried to get back in her husband's good graces, but he largely ignored her and would simply walk away when she began crying. On Wednesday, movers came to the house, packed up their things, and prepared them for shipment to Kayatani. A realtor had already put a for sale sign in the yard. With everything out of the house and all of their affairs in order, Ram and Marion spent a night at a motel, sleeping in different beds. It was hard, as he always found her to be sexy and very enticing. But he was determined not to give in to her. They flew out early Friday morning. After they settled into their room at the Marriott Hotel, he made a couple of calls and learned that Jake had actually left the States and was on his way to the island. He then learned that the proceeding would take place on Monday, and Jake had been taken into custody by the King's Guards, an elite unit of the National Police. The weekend was hard on both of them. Marion did everything she could to talk him out of going through with it, but he rebuffed her efforts. "Please, can't we get through this?" she begged. He looked at her and simply shook his head. "No. You disrespected me in the worst way a woman can. You made your choice. Now you must live with it. But I promise it'll never happen again. Please, Ram, I love you." "And I loved you as well," he said. "What good are your promises anyway? Do you remember the promise you made to me when we married? You failed to keep that one, so how can I possibly trust that you'll keep any other promises?" "We can try counseling, can't we?" "Please, Ram, I'm begging you. It didn't mean anything. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Silence, woman," he thundered. "It meant everything to me, damn it. You pledged yourself to me and me alone, just as I pledged myself to you only. I kept my pledge to you, but you broke yours to me. Now, it's time to deal with it and move on." Finally, Monday morning arrived, and Ram woke Marion up at 4:30 a.m. "Why are you waking me up so early?" she asked. "It's time to get ready. You should probably have some breakfast before we leave. We have a long drive ahead of us." "But the courthouse isn't that far away. It's just a few blocks over. We can walk there in less than a half hour." "We're not going to the courthouse," he said. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Metsatani," he said, referring to the dormant volcano on the southernmost tip of the island. The last time it erupted over 2,500 years earlier, it blew off the top third of the mountain, leaving a giant hole in the ground that later became a holy site for the island's population. "You were the one who wanted a traditional marriage. I think it only fitting we have a traditional divorce." The realization of what he said began to sink in. "What? You can't mean—" "Yes. Now get ready. We have enough time to eat before we have to be on the road." Marion got up, shocked, and went into the bathroom to get ready. She knew about the legends of Metsatani and the place it held in local folklore. It was the traditional place where marriages were dissolved, but those ceremonies usually ended up with someone dying. Surely he wouldn't do that, she thought. After they dressed, Ram put a gym bag in the trunk of their rented car and took her to the dining room where they ate breakfast. He ate a hearty breakfast as he always did, but she barely touched her food. Inside, she was a bundle of nerves. Surely the old stories were just that. Stories, she said to herself. Or were they? The drive to the mountain, which sat on the southernmost tip of the island, would take more than an hour. She sat in the passenger seat, looking out the window while feeling like a condemned criminal being taken to the gallows. Finally, they reached their destination. Ram pulled off the winding two-lane highway and drove to the parking lot, where he stopped the car. He got out, grabbed his bag, and opened Marion's door. "Let's go," he said quietly. Marion looked at him with tears in her eyes and slowly got out of the car. Her legs buckled under as she stood, but he steadied her and guided her to the ancient rock steps that led to the top of Metsatani. "Climb the steps," he told her. Trembling, she began the long walk up the staircase, wondering how many others had done this in ancient times. When they reached the top, 2 uniformed members of the King's Guard met them. As they looked, they saw several older Kaitani sitting in a semicircle in front of the ancient rock plank that jutted out over a giant gaping hole that was once the caldera of Metsatani. She knew the hole was at least 5,000 feet deep and a stream of lava flowed at the bottom. They also noticed a portable gazebo surrounded by the king's guards. Large flags flew on either side of the gazebo. Inside the enclosure was an older Kayatani, dressed in traditional garb. Marion gasped when she realized who it was. She looked at Ram. "Do you know the king?" she asked. "I should. He's my father's brother." Ram looked at the guards. "Get her ready," he told them. He watched them take her to a tent and went to another where he donned his traditional robe. He considered his sivage and recalled that day on the beach when Marion presented it to him. He had hoped it would never get used. He placed it in his belt, then went back outside. By then, Marion had been prepared and was being led to the plank wearing a short red robe. Jake had already been delivered and was standing on the plank, his arms and legs firmly secured. He wasn't too happy, but the guards had already informed him to keep quiet unless he was addressed. Ram stepped before the gazebo and bowed to his uncle, who acknowledged him with a nod of his head. He then took his place in front of the tribunal, which was seated in a semicircle before the plank. "Prince Ram Kaluahin," the man at the center of the semicircle said, "this tribunal has reviewed your request for divorce. We have also examined all the evidence and have determined that your case is valid. Based on the evidence, your petition for divorce has been granted. Do you wish to address those who have wronged you before you carry out the final judgment?" "I do, Counselor," Ram said. "Very well then. Proceed." Ram bowed to the tribunal and turned to face Marion and Jake, who were now tied together on the plank. He could tell that Marion was frightened, as she had every right to be. Jake, on the other hand, had no idea what was about to happen and remained arrogant as ever. "What the hell is this all about?" Jake asked as Ram walked toward them. "Shut up," Marion told Jake. "Why? Are they going to sacrifice us to their volcano god or something?" "God, you're such dumb," she whispered. "Are you two about finished?" Ram asked. They said nothing as they stared back at him. Ram continued, looking at his soon-to-be ex-wife. "Do you remember the pledge you made to me down there on the beach 5 years ago?" he asked. "I remember," she said. "Did you fully understand the nature of the pledge we made to each other?" he asked. "Yes, I do," she said slowly. Ram nodded his head in sadness. He had given her an out, but she did not take it. It would have been one thing if she did not understand the nature of her wedding pledge. Her admission to the contrary, however, sealed her fate. "Pledge?" Jake asked. "What pledge?" Marion wanted a traditional Kayatani marriage, part of which requires the couple to pledge each other their mind, body, and soul for as long as they live. You see, Jake, here, we believe that the most important traits a person can have are loyalty and fidelity. Without those, nothing else matters. In the old days, when a Ka'atani couple married, they pledged those things to each other in front of witnesses with full understanding that the cost of betrayal would be their very lives. He pulled the sharp, curved knife from his belt. Jake's eyes widened when he saw the blade. "But that's murder," Jake stammered. "In your culture, perhaps. Here we call it divorce. This blade was given to me by Marion on the day we wed, as tradition dictates. It's more than just a bauble or a trinket to hide behind glass. In the days of my ancestors, it was worn by the husband as a sign that he was not available. It was also intended as a warning to anyone who might encroach on the couple. Someone like you, Jake." With that, Ram swung his arm out in a flash. When he was done, a red line appeared on Jake's neck, and his eyes went wide as he realized his carotid artery had just been cut. The blood spurted and poured down his neck, and he began to sway as he lost strength. Marion tried to steady them on the rock plank, but found it difficult as Jake lost the strength to stand. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew over them, causing Marion and Jake to fall into the abyss below. Ram closed his eyes for a moment in an effort to keep from sobbing. He opened his eyes and tossed the blade into the large hole, then pulled off his wedding band and tossed it after the knife. He heard a gavel pound behind him, and the chief of the tribunal spoke. "This divorce is final," he said. Ram stared straight ahead as the tribunal gathered their things and left. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see his uncle standing beside him. "You loved her," his uncle said. "I did," Ram replied. "You even gave her a way out, but she didn't take it. In the end, she did the honorable thing." "I suppose so," Ram said. "I know this was the hardest thing you've ever had to do, my son," the king said. "Trust me, when you get into my position, it doesn't get any easier." "You will outlive me, uncle," Ram said. The older man chuckled. "Hardly. At any rate, your honor has been restored. Now it is time to mourn what has been lost and move ahead. By the way, Sika is anxiously awaiting a call from you. She still loves you, and she's managed to keep the hounds at bay." "After all these years?" Ram asked. "Yes," the king said. He pulled out a card and handed it to Ram. "She would be a good wife to you and a good queen when the time comes. And I must admit, I've always fancied having a real doctor in the family." The last time Ram had spoken to her, she was in the States working on her medical degree and was going through her residency. "Now please call the girl and give her your number, and let her know I'm not your answering service," the king said with a smile. Ram laughed at that. "Thank you, uncle. I'll do that." The older man smiled and patted him on the shoulder before leaving. Ram went to his tent and changed out of the robe he had worn. He sat for a minute and thought about Marion. He wiped the tears from his eyes and went down the steps to his car. After he got in the car, he pulled out his phone and saw he had good service. He dialed the number his uncle had given him. "Cha," said a sweet female voice after the first ring. He thought back to his younger years and recalled the sweet, curvy, dark-haired woman he was so attracted to before he met Marion. "Cha," he said in response, "the divorce is final." "Good. Now please come home to the one who loved you first, Ram. I've missed you so much." "I'm on my way," he said. Perhaps there really is something special about one's first love, he thought. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.